Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Deep Drop. This is a fishing podcast. I'm Luke McCredden. Adam Ring is with me. And Adam, fishingworld.com is where we go to find out the latest and greatest with what's happening in the fishing and boating world. I know for a fact that you've been diving in and having a bit of a look around there this week. What have you come up with, my friend?
I've been having a bit of a scroll and come across an article by Greg Finney that is titled "Taking Kids Fishing."
Right.
Now, look, I thought, all right. Well, you and I have touched really briefly on taking kids fishing in previous episodes of the Deep Drop, but I thought, okay, let's see what direction Greg takes it, and I was pleasantly surprised because it's not your standard taking kids fishing article. So he basically, in summary, he goes through essentially how kids these days are being brought up into fishing and through fishing with the likes of social media and television and podcast and radio and sponsorship and influencers and all this sort of stuff, compared to when he started, where it was basically, I'm going to teach you how to collect bait, tie knots, and catch fish.
Okay.
So I thought, all right, this would be an interesting one for you and I to pick apart, Luke, because we both have young kids.
Yeah.
And it made me think, what does the next generation or the up-and-coming generation of fishermen look like? Because I think I can relate to what Greg was talking about through his early development through fishing, where his dad, who was quite an accomplished fisherman and also an accomplished rider around fishing, would teach him the basics of fishing, which I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, similar to us. Our dads taught us how to fish, and it was that. It was bait fishing only. Lures weren't a huge thing. If they were around, but it wasn't.
No,
it was nowhere near. If you wanted to catch a fish, you would go bait fishing. So, mine was jumping around from jetty to jetty. Everything was on bait, and it was just tackle shop, store-bought, frozen bait, and we would go and do that. So my introduction to fishing was quite similar to Greg's, where it was learning those absolute basics. But then I think, and listen, I have two girls, one's 14 and one's 9. They're not interested in fishing. Right. The most interested that they got to fishing was during COVID, when we were in lockdown in Victoria, because we were allowed to go 5 kilometres from home, and we had a stocked local lake within 5 kilometres of our house. And the only reason my kids liked it is because they knew every morning before we started homeschooling, we were going to go fishing, so they were all for it, because it delayed school for the day. But it was interesting, though, because I never taught them anything but how to cast a spinner.
Yeah, right.
So I didn't teach them how to tie knots. Okay. But they also weren't super inquisitive. What are your kids like, Luke, when it comes to this?
As far as wanting to sort of learn the ropes, so to speak, I think similarly, my 14-year-old daughter's not as interested in fishing as she once was. However, my two boys, in particular my youngest, is into it. And the only thing we're doing really at the moment is, heading down to our local pier down here and fishing for a bit of whatever. There's some wrasse, there's some whiting, there's some salmon and stuff like that around, but it's all bait. So I'm just sort of, and he's 6, so he's probably at that age where I'm more teaching him what a rod and reel is, what a hook is, you know what I mean? So that sort of stuff, and it's very much just some vac-sealed bits of squid that I keep, and we've got it all stockpiled for as long as you can need it for, and we just take little bits at a time, and that's kind of it at the moment. What I've noticed though is he looks at my gear and it's like, what's that do? What's that? And typically it's the lures because they're cool looking.
Yeah.
So we now take a squid jig, a few soft plastics out as well, and he obviously leans towards that stuff because it's constantly casting and winding back in. It's like you don't have to sit there and wait. You know what I mean? Like it's more
that's right. It's active.
So I've noticed that I think the idea of the look of some of the bits and pieces of lures has certainly pricked his ears up and opened his eyes up a bit. But see, I think ads, I think about this stuff all the time, and I am a bit on the where I sit with it is I refer to it as grassroots fishing, what you and I were doing and so many others, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever, jumping around jetties and proper jetty rats, pier rats, you know what I mean? And I still remember those days, and the amount you sort of learn and don't learn, if that makes sense. So there's stuff that you never want to necessarily do, but you pick up so much and you just learn the grassroots of what it's about. And it's not fancy and it's not, trendy. It's getting your hands dirty and hoping to catch a mullet.
Yeah.
And that's good fun. What I get concerned about is that some kids, not all obviously, but their first fishing experiences now is, I don't know, on a 6 meter hard top, or using live scope, or you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of, and I get it. It's like, if you're, mate, the kids, I used to love taking the kids out in some of the boats we had, nice big comfortable boats and all that sort of thing, but which we certainly didn't have when we were kids. But there's kind of an element of it that's like, get down to the beach, get down to the local pier and jetty, talk to some people if you want to, well, obviously, or you're the same with your kids. We'll always teach and educate, but it's like sometimes it's just about getting out there and getting your hands dirty, digging up some worms and sitting on the bank of a river that might have zero fish in it, but just doing that sort of stuff. I wonder whether that's disappearing a bit just in general. The grassroots fishing is not what it was, which is okay, but it's also, I think the people that are like live and breathe it now, it's because of that.
Yeah, exactly. I find it fascinating to think about where it ends up, because I relate it to, let's say, mobile phones. I remember when my mum and dad got the first mobile phone, this big brick friggin' thing that you had to like pull the antenna up on it, but then I also remember the introduction of smartphones. And I still joke about this with a very good friend of ours, Mitch Chapman. I remember he got it, the first iPhone. And his exact words to me when I asked, because I'd still rocking a Nokia, thinking it was the greatest thing ever. I'll never own another phone that's not a Nokia. Like, these things are just... And Mitch looked at me and he goes, it's life-changing. And he was right. So...
It's changed the world, mate.
So our kids now are coming up, and the only thing they know are mobile phones that send text, video, audio, record yourself, post it on social media. We went through all of the... Remember, Snake was the coolest thing ever on a mobile phone.
Yeah, and to have a ringtone, you had to literally dial in each note on your dial pad. On the.
That's right. You're typing a text message, and you had to push the same button 4 times to get the letter that you're after. Which, by the way, our generation mastered the shit out of that. Remember how quick you could smash out a text message?
Yeah, and like, there was an advantage of that. You didn't have to look. You could do it.
You just
without,
did it.
I could send text while it was in my pocket. I'd just stick my hand in my pocket and just fire off a text.
That's right.
Can't
you just
do that
did
anymore.
But now the kids coming up, they're not going to know anything but live scope.
Yeah.
And side scan and 360 and down and whatever technology continues to grow. It's going to be interesting to see what that does for fishing and where it takes it, because there's a romance to that old school style that you and I got brought up doing.
Yeah.
Hopping around from jetty to jetty, finding bait wherever you could. Just really
experimenting.
Yeah, and just working it out. Where it didn't, you know what I mean?
Do you think there's less of the unknown now, though?
Oh, there's heaps less of the unknown, but it's making fishing different. And I'm not saying it's in a good or a bad way, but I've been having some interesting conversations around what our industry's doing and where it's and where it's headed. And we're in a golden age of fishing tackle. We have been for a long time, and it's only going to get better. What that looks like, I don't know. But I think we're already moving or have moved into a point where the outcome, as in the fish, that's kind of the starting point. Whereas for us, just catching that mullet was the be all and end all. But now you ask a kid, do you want to catch a mullet? And the kid's like, nah, bugger that. I want to go and catch a snapper, or I want to go and catch a Meter Murray cod in the middle of winter with live scope. You're like, oh, you've skipped what seems to be the initiation to fishing. And it was because I was torn reading Greg's article, and for those that haven't, fishingworld.com.au, jump on there and have a look. It's titled Taking Kids Fishing. It is a very interesting perspective.
I vividly remember fishing in the Queenscliff Marina when it used to be not what it is now, and catching and a friend of mine catching a yellow-eyed mullet, and we just went, fucking best holiday ever. Like a shit, and like legitimately, we're just like, this is magnificent. And then similarly, maybe the following year or whatever, it might have been a garfish. I was like, fucking how cool's that? We might have caught two of them. It's like, oh
yeah. We used to crawl under jetties with punnets.
That was just last
maggots.
year, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. It's a slow learn. It's a slow learn for us. But I remember going down to the docklands and just finding one of like a random hatch that leads underneath the jetties, and hopping around.
Jesus, be careful what you look at down there.
Hopping around under there with just a punnet of maggots and burling up some brim, and you'd catch 4 or 5 the size of your palm, and you'd leave going, "That was the best day ever."
Yeah. I mean, and with everything, and it's not a knock. Like, if kids, and I sound fucking hell, we sound old talking like this, but it's like with the digital technology that's available for, I mean, they're using iPads and everything as just part of everyday schooling, right? Which was not even on it wasn't even invented, but like to think about that shit when we were growing up. So it's no different, like in a lot of ways, to fishing. There's but more access to better gear.
Yeah.
At entry-level prices as well.
Oh, but just information.
But then information is the thing. Like you couldn't, as a kid, magazines, newspaper, that one page of the weather is, there was a brief paragraph about Port Phillip Bay. And I'm pretty sure it was just
on a Sunday or something.
But I also think it was recycled every week, the same report that was just tweaked slightly, that no one was really doing. And then, of course, there was, when we were kids, Rex.
Yep.
Malcolm Douglas was doing, lots of cool stuff on his docos, but it wasn't informative TV,
correct.
Though. Yeah.
The information itself was limited. Like, we relied solely on our dads to teach us what we needed to even get a bait in the water.
Yeah. I remember being gutted that the time that Dad said, it's time you start tying your own knots. I'm like, fuck that.
Yeah.
But I had to. Because I would argue that, though. So, right, I reckon while there is a maximum amount of information getting around, I reckon people are learning less.
You could, and I've got a perfect example. And you've seen it a million times over, and so have I. How many times did we rig up outfits for people that considered themselves avid game fishermen?
So the amount of fucking
and that's
doubles
only
and plats,
rigging skirts, connecting wind-ons, the whole box and dice. And I'm a huge believer in, if that's what you're passionate about, you should at least know how to do that.
Fair call.
Because that's part of the craft. That's part of the game. That's what you know what I mean? But
no, I get it. It's like if you go to if you've got anyone that you know, who is certainly not me, by the way, who is a passionate car enthusiast, they're going to they're likely to service the car themselves, and they're going to do all that shit. Fucking, I don't know what I'm talking about. So, nor do I care.
Yeah, that's right, because it's not my thing.
Yeah,
but I think that's where it's interesting, and I kind of feel as though that's where Greg was going with the tone of his article. It's like the kids don't care how and when it came to do this. It's just tie a lure on and go and catch the fish and post it on social media, because all the bit leading up to the fish and social media is irrelevant. It doesn't matter how. Just get the fish, post it on social media, the rest will take care of itself. Where for us it was learn the game.
Learn the game.
And you just hope that the kids that are passionate about fishing, like proper passionate about it, they're naturally going to be inquisitive enough to go, okay, how?
And there will always be that, but I do think the temptation of a bit of 5 minutes of pats on the back on social media gets too much for people, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to post this, and then I'm going to post the same photo next week because fuck, that felt good.
Yeah. It's an interesting...
I don't know.
Interesting existence.
And I don't know whether it was the exact direction this article was going, but I fear that the grassroots fishing is dying a slow death. And
again, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but I wonder what is the new grassroots of fishing? What has it turned into? I mean, us learning how to bait a hook and tie a knot, that could be replaced by how to thread a plastic onto a jig head.
Oh, maybe. But where's that happening though? Like, as in, and what I mean by that is it
YouTube, the internet?
Yeah.
You can find whatever you want, when you want, at whatever time you want, because it's all on your phone. You can sit down. Okay, what if in our day, Luke, I could say that, hey, you want to learn how to tie a paternoster? Go and sit on the toilet while you're having a shit and YouTube, and you can learn how to tie a paternoster.
Oh,
because that's what you can do now.
Do I take a spool of line and some hooks with me? Is that, I don't know what.
A handful of 2.0 bait holders and some 30-pound traces replaced a newspaper.
Oh, my wife would just stare at me as I walked into the toilet with some 20-pound monofilament.
Yeah, and
a bunch of bait holder hooks.
It's going to be a good sesh, Dale. Don't call on me for a while.
Shouldn't be too long. Give us an hour and a half.
Yeah. It's replaced the newspaper.
Yeah, but maybe, and that, that's probably it. And I think I'm not. It's not a knock, by the way. This is not a knock. Like I recently jumped on YouTube to look at some rigging technique that they do. I know they do in America, and I just wanted to see if it was something that could work here. I can't remember what it was now. Might have been on worms.
Worm, because I've had heaps of it. I've had heaps of it come up in my feed as well. There's 5, 6, 7 different ways you can rig one plastic worm.
Yeah. None of which seemed like good for here.
No, I agree. They were interesting. But it was never like, I've got to go and do that. But it's
But that's
weird.
my point. I'm more than happy to use those mediums for, learning. I think it's great.
I don't think it's weird, because I don't think the fishers being brought up on that are as inquisitive as what say some of the others are, only because, and it's not because they're not inquisitive, it's because the information is just so easy.
The other thing that I think the information does, right or wrong, is say, no, that won't work.
Yeah.
So then you've got no incentive to go out and try it.
That's
and
right.
Like how many, God, and it sounds cliche, and I remember Dad saying it to me when I was a kid, but it's so, like, the amount of times you go out and fail, or not fail because you're learning, but don't catch, is astronomical. But that's all part of it.
Well, it's weird. We're living in an age where fishing reports have killed fishing.
Yeah.
Because
why would you go if the report says don't?
Correct. Because pre-internet, the fishing report was the fishing Bible. If your local store had a fishing report, or exactly what you said earlier, you flipped to the weather page in the Herald Sun and there was a 1-paragraph summary of the entire state on what was happening. That's like, oh, okay, the bream are biting at the Tambo. Could have been from 6 months ago. We didn't care. We just read, oh, the bream. I want to go to the Tambo.
What are we doing? Let's go.
That's right. Or you go to your local tackle shop and they've got a whiteboard out the front saying, snapper at 18 metres off Carrum. You're like, I've got to get out to 18 metres somehow. But now you scour through the internet. There's a dedicated page per species, per location on social media that you get all these reports. And then you could go, oh, okay, well, we're in September in Melbourne. Water temps are on the way up. Snapper should be going. Flick through social media. Oh, no one's caught a snapper yet. I won't bother.
Yeah. Yes, it's so true. It's so true. And it's sad because the other thing is quite often some of the coolest shit that you do and see and the best captures are the ones where you sort of go, it's the odds are a bit against me, but I'm going to have a crack. And something happens, you go, that was just memorable, unbelievable.
Yep.
But to your point, no one will get that opportunity anymore if they just base the decisions on what they're reading across the social channels. But it's changing, man. We sound old as hell.
We sound old. We do.
But it's a good point, and yeah, it's a good point that the kid fishing landscape has changed. I think grassroots is not what it was, but I just don't want to see, those diehards that arguably you and I are, or some of the people that you see in the tackle stores, and I hope they don't die off because it's a fucking cool sport that we're in, and some of the best friends you make are through fishing too, and a lot of it's just getting out there and doing it. Like you think about the tackle stores and the fishing trips, and you just run into people and meet people, and it's like we've all got that same desire to like just go and have a crack. Well, that's what I'd hate to lose.
Yeah, we went from being surprised that we caught a fish to now expecting to catch a fish because we've been told they're thick, or remember you go down the pier and get a squid and you'd be like, shit, like I've got a squid. And then you got 2 more and you're like, what is going on? Like, this is the hottest squid bite I've ever seen.
Yeah. Fast
forward to now, like if I don't get 10, it's a failed trip.
Yeah. But even just that, and I think back about we used to wag school and go to Aussie Angler. We used to get a train and go out and see Rick at Aussie Angler, and we'd roll in there in the middle of the day in our school uniforms, and Rick would be like,
who was still dominating there, by the way.
Yeah, Rick Dobson, one of the most beautiful humans in the fishing industry, I think. And he probably wouldn't remember me from a bar of soap, but Christ, I'll never forget him drawing on bits of paper, here's the river, or, here's the bay, whatever, and just like drawing these detail for us just to go and have a go. And quite often you'd get fish, or, something would happen, you go, that was cool, and you just, all your trust is in everything he says then. And we learned some stuff from him and his shop there that, it was just because we were in there and just wide-eyed and just like wanted to soak it all in. But, those little tackle rats that we were, are they still getting around? Because we were just, they were memories that I'll never forget. And institutions, some of those stores,
They are. And there's heaps of them around, and they're still dominating.
Yeah.
They're still, so if you're in the younger age bracket and you're listening to this podcast, first off, we apologise for the language, but that's just how we roll.
Yeah, forgot about that.
But enjoy all of it. It's not just about posting a photo of your catch on social media. By all means, do that. It's part of the world. Show people that you're fishing, but love it. Like, love the game. Learn. Ask questions. We made a podcast about asking questions because that's all we did when we were growing up, and we still don't know the answers. And that's still why nearly 20 years later, we're still working in this industry because we're still trying to work it out. It's
still learning.
Just get the love of the game.
And if I see Dobbo at a trade show or something, I'll go and ask him some. I'll probably still be asking him some questions and getting some advice, and I might even bring a pen and paper over, and he'll draw me a map or something.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Man, it's good.
It's
great
awesome
stuff. Get back into it. Get your hands dirty, kids, and go and just find out for yourself.
Yeah,
it's
ask
fun.
questions, learn, try stuff. It's the best.
It is. It is the best. Ads, thanks for that trip down memory lane.
Yeah, it was good, eh?
I feel like I just want to go and hit a jetty now.
How good's fishing?
How
good is fishing?
How good's fishing? How good is it?
How good is it?
Let's go fishing. Come on, let's go fishing.
Let's do it.
See ya.